Hello everyone, it's Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo for The Addicted Gamer, and today we're in a Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program, one of my binge games. I get into this usually this time of year because it's quick. You could walk away from it if you want to. A lot of good things happen during the spring and summer for me. My kids are off from school, start going to the pool, gets busy at work, and just start to get active, really active, and not really sitting in front of the computer, which is why you start to see less videos from me. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to catch up on some contracts. This one was to test the flea out, and of course I didn't have it staged, but the flea is very quick motor, and we get the needed contract taken care of here. So when you're doing contracts, just remember that if you can take the ones that are very simple and cost you almost nothing like this, it really recovered everything but the solid fuel that was in the rocket. So there was no reason not to do this one. It was actually pretty cool, pretty fun. So let's skip ahead a little bit and see what the next thing I did was. Now, you get a lot of missions starting early on to ferry VIPs and tourists up and through the outer atmosphere of Kerbal, so into suborbital flight and orbital flight, which is totally opposite from what we've done here in our world, where tourism in space has only been prominent the last 10 to 15 years, where people are actually paying lots of money to go on Russian and privately owned spacecraft. So what I do here is I use the Mk1 cockpit and Mk1 capsule, and I put them together in that configuration. Now, I could put a probe on the top of it to save some extra money, but I intend on recovering this whole vessel. I find this to be my easiest way to get passengers into orbit, into suborbital flight and back, and it's a pretty cool looking rocket. Later on, when you get the lander can, you could actually stack two of them and bring three people, a Kerbal and two tourists, or you can put a probe core on a couple of lander cans and take them up without another capsule. But in most cases, you're going to recover most of your rocket. And that's a pretty good deal because you don't want to be wasting money trying to make the pittance, the little tiny bits of money that you're going to make taking people into and out of orbit. One of the bigger profits that you're going to make, one of the greater profits that you're going to make in the game is actually going to be in satellites, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's see what this rocket finally looks like and see how it flies. So as you watch a standard launch here at night, very quick one. We don't want to waste any days because a lot of the missions that you get only last for a couple of days on the mission board. And if you don't grab them, you're going to lose them. Early on, without upgrading your mission control center, you're not going to be able to get a lot of missions. So you're going to want to keep on doing these missions in real time, whether it be night or day. That way you don't give up any that you don't want to. So this one with the two solid rocket boosters on the side and the, I think I'm using the swivel engine in the center. You can make orbit with this thing very easy. Well, look at this. We're already breaking through the sound barrier. Can be dangerous in certain situations. You better be ready to grab control of the flight every now and then. But as soon as we get rid of our solid boosters, we're pretty much on our way to a suborbital trajectory here. So there's a little bit of, I guess you can call it strategy to talk about in the game. So you have quite a number of things going on. You have to make science, right? You got to learn things. You have to discover things to be able to get points to unlock bigger parts. You also have to get money. You have to get money by doing contracts for people, testing equipment, putting satellites into orbit, ferrying people back and forth, building space stations, etc. And those things are going to bring you the needed cash to build the rockets that you need to do things to earn science, to learn science, I should say. And then you have upgrades to different parts of your space center, whether it be mission control to be able to take more missions, the astronaut center to be able to hire more astronauts. R&D center to be able to unlock more research or to be able to grab surface surveys from different places on Kerbin or different places in the solar system that they have. So there's quite a bit going on, right? So how do you do it? How do you do it all? Well, you got to balance it, right? Your mission should try to take care of multiple things. In this one, I was taking care of one thing. I was taking care of getting this Kerbin into a suborbital trajectory, and you'll see I started it over once or twice. And it's because I'm trying to get a couple of things done at once. But you could have things to like test a rocket max decoupler, test a specific engine, and to possibly test a parachute. If you could layer all three of those things into one flight, you're going to make a maximum profit. And that's where the strategy comes in. How do you build a rocket that incorporates all of those together? Well, as time goes on in this Let's Play series, I hope that I'm going to be able to show you things like that, okay? As we skip ahead, we're also going to talk about astronauts, right? So astronauts can gain experience, and when they gain experience, they could unlock different things that they can do. And in a situation like a pilot, they can unlock different autopilots, different things that they could do to help you move on. Well, there's also some mods in the game that are instrumental, and we'll talk about them over time also. One of the most important ones you'll see over to the right, and that's going to be Kerbal Space Program. And probably the second most important one for me is going to be Kerbal Alarm Clock. And there are literally hundreds of other different mods that are out there. I'm going to say one in particular is called MechJeb. It's kind of like Kerbal Engineer with an autopilot. Now, a lot of people look at MechJeb in a way that it's breaking the game. You got to be able to do all this stuff on your own. You shouldn't be using something like that because it's kind of cheating. Well, in real life, there are programs put into satellites, programs that are put into even the space shuttle that are going to take it through certain maneuvers. And I'm not trying to justify skipping over things in the game. What I'm trying to tell you is that there are mods out there that can help all aspects of the game. And if you're new to the game or just don't want to do some of the more tedious tasks, like you create a node but you don't want to sit there and count down how long you have to fire the engine, mods like MechJeb can help out too. You won't see it here, but you will see it later on. I'm implementing it into my gameplay in a time when remote would be more important, and that's going to be when I start getting into probes. All right, we've landed, and you can see that I recovered most of my capsule, so I'm going to recover a great deal of money. Now here's a rocket I built that's actually a satellite lander. Its main intentions are to get to the moon, grab some data, and bring it back to Kerbin. Now, you're going to find a lot of missions that require this, and you're going to send astronauts. But, early on in the space program here, we sent the Viking lander to the moon. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use a lander that's going to go and land on the moon. The only difference is it has a return stage. And that's going to test designs and test my theories on how I want to move Kerbins back and forth to the moon early on, when all you have is kind of like Mercury Redstone, well, early in the US program style rockets. I mean, these things really weren't made to go that far. You're using technologies that aren't even used on rockets today, like asparagus staging, and rockets like that we fly around today don't look like this. They have big giant gas tanks, hydrogen or kerosene and liquid oxygen. And then they have solid rocket boosters on the side that are much more efficient than the ones that you get early on in Kerbal Space Program. So let's see this thing take off, and then let's go on and see how this mission went. So the missions that I run are pretty simple. We had a little bit of a stickiness there. I hope that doesn't cost me any Delta V. But they're pretty simple. I mean, I take off with an equatorial orbit because you have to, because that's where the moon will be revolving around or rotating around. So you get into space, you circularize your orbit, and then you push out your maneuvering node to the moon. That's the easiest way to get there. And if you want to know techniques, I'm not going to teach you that here. You could actually look up on YouTube. There's many videos, Scott Manley in particular, that he's done how to get to the moon. And there's a lot of YouTube documents out there that teach you how to get to the moon, Minmus, Duna, the first three places that you're likely to choose to go to. Minmus was actually pretty fun. I think I'm going to go there and collect like oodles of data in one of my next videos. But in this one, we're going to take this baby to the moon, and then we're going to come back. So we're burning these engines over here. Something to be aware of, that when you do your gravity turn, you want to do it in sufficient time so you don't push too far up and then have to waste a lot of delta V, your actual energy, trying to catch up. The second piece is when you do, there you go, when you stage your empty engines, you want to make sure that you're pretty much flying towards your velocity vector. If you are not, those engines, those tanks might fall back into your ship. So that was a pretty successful takeoff, and we've done our gravity turn. We're going to keep pushing out, and we're going to try to get our speed up. Orbital velocity is somewhere between 22 and 2400 meters a second. So the quicker you can start firing right at the horizon, the faster you're going to start picking up your orbital speed. And getting there is very important. So you keep going into the map section, bring up your nav ball, make sure you're firing down, and keep checking your apoapsis. If you have Kerbal Engineer on and you've spent the money on the part on the ship, you could actually have a readout. You could have a HUD on either side of the top, and it will tell you what your apoapsis, your time to apoapsis, your periapsis, time to periapsis, your orbital velocity, and etc. is. It's a pretty good, well, I would say it's the most important one of the mods that you can go out and get. I'll jump around on this video from time to time, so we've now gone a little bit forward and we're circularizing our orbit. This is really just firing down at the prograde marker or the target marker, depending on which one you're using, and just, you know, firing the engine for as long as it tells you. If you do use a product like MechJeb, it's alright to create the node and then just have MechJeb execute it, but I do tell you this, use MechJeb where it makes sense on a on probes that you want to do automated flights. Maybe on the hardest parts of your flights when you're getting used to the game, maybe rendezvous. Those are all things that you have to unlock, though. So we're looking for our orbital intercept here. Actually, it's called an encounter. So we're looking for an encounter, and what you do is you draw a line right through the axis of the Earth, well, from Kerbal. So from the moon through to the other side of Kerbal to the other side of the orbit. So you'll have this line that cuts right through there. And then at the bottom part of that line, you're going to push out from there, and that's where your intercept is going to be. I'm going to try to get it within about 20K, and that should do well for us. So let's move on to after this maneuver is actually executed. So here we are completing that maneuver, just pushing ever so slightly. What I do is I throttle way down and I try to get that moved up. Now if you see over there, my maneuvering node shows the encounter a little bit further over. What has happened here? Well, I'll tell you what's happened here. So as you're staging, right, you're going to see different times that you have to burn because you only have a certain amount of delta V. There's also the piece that a lot of people don't get, that when it tells you that you have a 30-second burn, you don't burn when your countdown is at 0. If you do, you're going to be burning from the apoapsis forward. What you want to do is take whatever the burn time is and cut it in half, and use that half of the time in front of and the other half of the time in back of the apoapsis. So if it's a minute to apoapsis and you have a 30-second burn, you want to go at 15 seconds to apoapsis to 15 seconds after apoapsis, and that's what you're going to burn, and that's going to be even. I didn't do that here because I had the stage right in the middle of it, and my thrust is different from one stage to the next, and I didn't take that into account, but it didn't really ruin my trajectory too bad. It's just going to hit me. It's just going to cost me a little bit more delta V on the other side because I've had to actually go faster to catch the moon here. All right, so we're going to get to this encounter. We're sped up in the game. We're going to start moving closer in. I could have just done focus view on the moon, but I don't want to do that, and there we are. So we have our encounter with the moon, and this is what it looks like. And what we want to do is go right at the periapsis and just close our loop and pull it in, and then point at our maneuvering marker and fire. Well, we want to point at our maneuver marker, our target marker, and then fire when it tells us to. Not a bad looking ship here, huh? Pretty nice. It's got all the pieces it needs: science, antenna, power generation from the flat panel solar panels, goo containers, they're pretty nice, and 2 lander legs just in case. My idea here was that I might not have enough delta V to land if I screw up, so I have lander legs on both the top and the bottom. I was also going to make the bottom a probe also that I could leave on the moon. So if I had to do another really quick gather science from the moon and transmit it back, I could have done it. But I forgot that second probe core right underneath the top stage. And that cost me. And I didn't want to go back to the start. It was a mistake on my part, so I didn't want to break the game by starting over too much here. So we circularize our orbit, and let's get to the part where we start our deorbit burn. Now there's a lot of mods out there that give satellites a lot more to do. There's ones that have radar mapping. I don't know if they still do Kethane, but Kethane used to have a couple of mods to satellites that would allow you to search for the resource Kethane on all the different astronomical bodies throughout the solar system. But in this case, we have a very simple, very easy to fly little probe system here. So we're putting out our landing gear, we did our deorbit burn, and we're just going to fall gently to the surface. So I'm telling you that this game is going to take you practice. So if you want to play it in the sandbox mode just to get a hang of it, I do tell you to do that. But if you do the career mode like this, it actually is quite rewarding when early on you're able to get a ship there and back without any of the more major parts that you're going to get later on. Like I said, it is pretty funny. And you do have to burn a lot of delta V off here. So I believe I'm not actually going to be able to recover this bottom stage because I used a very inefficient orbital path and deorbit method. A lot of times what you want to do is just shallow your deorbit a little bit. Otherwise, otherwise you're going to be using a lot of fuel like I am right now. Now, I did do the math, or I should say Kerbal engineer did the math. I have more than enough delta V in that top stage, the probe stage, to get home. So let's move on from here. This is a minor skip ahead. You can see we're falling towards a crater, and that's going to make for a very awkward landing because the craters, though they don't look like it here, they have very steep walls. So if we can get to the bottom of the crater, that's all right. If we can get to the top rim, outside the rim of the crater, that would be all right. But the craters are usually rung by a ridge line that's going to be very steep, and they have the steep walls. So we're coming in a very inefficient place, well, very dangerous place to land. And it actually posed a tiny bit of a problem there for me. Now you can see I have literally a smidge of delta V left in this particular stage. And I have to get rid of it because I needed to do a maneuver to get away from the ridgeline over here and land in a more flat space. Now this is a very light probe, so I have a lot of delta V here, and I'm not worried about not having enough fuel to get back to Kerbal. We're just going to take this thing right down at this particular point and let it land just to the other side of the ridgeline that rings the crater. That should give us a nice little place to gather some information. Oh, did you see the explosion? That was pretty cool. We're low enough to see it. So what you do when you're trying to land is you want to stop all horizontal speed, and then you want to just fall lightly to the planet, or to the moon in this case. And the way that you fall lightly is you do just short controlled burns to keep you right around 25 meters a second as you fall. If you do more than that, you're going to use a lot of delta V. And this is a very light craft, so I shouldn't have any problem with this. You see I'm using just ever so slightly. I was using thrust there. I wasn't doing much. And I'm turning it on ever so slightly just to keep it in that range. And as you get closer, what you want to do is make sure that you land no harder than 7 or 8 on these landing legs, and really shoot for 4.5 to 5.1 meters a second. And very light, very difficult because you're using very microscopic adjustments to the throttle here to land. But then as you get just above the surface and lower it to just below, you just let it fall, just like that, and land. So this one was to recover science from the moon's surface. We're going to do that. We've got our temperature scan. We have our goo container. We did not bring a science container with us. I'm going to do that with Bob later on. Yes, I said Bob, and I'll show you how we get Bob back and forth to the moon when he's not a pilot. That was it. That was all we were on the moon for, was just to gather that much science. So getting home is easy. You fire straight up, and then you fire right at the horizon. You get into an orbit, and then I'll show you what you do next. Now in real life, we would need a heat shield to be able to re-enter the atmosphere here. And if you use mods like Ferrum Aerospace, you could be guaranteed that that is the case. You will need a heat shield. But in the stock game, you really don't need that. And we could actually just land with the engine facing, because the engine's made to take that much heat. It's just not made to take the type of heat the re-entry gives you. And most of the heat shields that you have are they're going to dissipate heat away from the ship and arc it around it. So you usually have a bigger blunt end into the atmosphere and not such a cylindrical shape. Nonetheless, we're taking this ship down to the planet. We're most likely going to land in water because that's, most of the surface of Kerbal, just like it is most of the surface of Earth. And we're going to get a huge amount of cash and science, not that much science, but enough to unlock some more things for the completion of this mission. Now, I do have a lot of information on here I don't want to lose. So I am going to make sure I keep keep facing my ship directly at the retrograde marker. It's going to keep most of the heat away from me. And I'm dissipating heat pretty quickly. And I'm not going to use the cheat, which is just to spin the ship around a lot. When you do spin the ship around a lot, it tends to dissipate your speed a lot faster. And that wouldn't be so bad with this because there is no Kerbal in here to get dizzy. Well, we're getting closer and closer to the planet, so we survived re-entry, so the next piece is just to fall ever so lightly back down to Kerbal. So let's fast forward to that and then close out this video. The game is absolutely fun and really rewarding if you like games that you have to create things and then see them work. And those are some of the games I like the most. Now, what I'm trying to show you in this video is to think outside the box. Don't try to create something that you think is traditional. Create something that's non-traditional sometimes, like the early on in this video when I showed you the way I get tourists into and out of space. That's not a way I've seen other people do it. I've seen them do it with the probe cores. But I always take a Kerbal pilot with me because I think that's something that in my Kerbin world is more likely. I mean, you don't want to send a tourist up there with no one to talk to, right? And when you're thinking about missions that you might have to accomplish, don't always think a Kerbin's involved. I mean, building amazing satellites and probes is also fun in this game. So we have 181 science. We gained a bunch of science from this mission. And of course, we have recovered some parts here. And we have made some money. So we did what we set out to accomplish. We closed out a couple of contracts, made some money, and are able to unlock another one of our wonderful... Let's get it done. I think we're going to go for heavy rockets. No, fuel. We're going to go for fuel systems because I want to start asparagus staging. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, folks, that was today's missions, and I'll bring you these every now and then. I do have live commentary on some of them that I will put up in the future. I think they're more fun when you do live commentary, only I have to get out the curse words because there are times that I just get really upset with mistakes I've made. All right, with that all said, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.